Hello everyone, and welcome to our video on factoring trig expressions. So factoring is always the reverse of multiplying. Okay, so we check with multiplication. So let's break down number one. So number one has two terms. Usually when it's two terms, you're thinking, and actually all factor any expression, first step you always do is try to factor out a GCF. So on this number one, we would say, yeah, there is a greatest common factor between the two terms. It looks like there's a 3x. And then we would take it out. So this one will do all the way. We'll take it out and then we'll make adjustments and say, well, 3 times 3 would have been that 9. And then x times x would have been x squared. And then 3 times 4 would give us 12, minus still there. And then the x, yeah, would be attached. So that's how that would factor. And then remember, you can check any factor by distributing. And so it would match our original expression. Well, the same goes for trig functions. So the trig functions are their own variables. So in this number 4, it still has two terms in it. So the minus is what separates it. And so we can go through them and find the greatest common factor. So the greatest common factor, first look at those coefficients. So our greatest common factor on this one is 4 so far. And then let's use some blue. And then this term has cosine t, so does this term. So that means cosine t is also part of the greatest common factor. Okay, so let's take that out. So we're going to write, let's keep it in blue, even the 4. So we're going to take 4 cosine of t out. And then again, just like above, it's going to match the style. Well, 4 times 2 would be 8. And then cosine of t would match it. Okay, so that's the first term inside the parentheses. Minus, okay, so we took the 4 out all the way. We took cosine of t out all the way. We're left with a sine of t. There we go. That's it. Okay, so that's how we factored it. Okay, so double check if this gets distributed back in. Well, 4 times 2 is 8, and then cosine of t is attached. Yep, that's that. And then 4 cosine of t sine of t. Remember, the order doesn't matter with multiplication. So yeah, that is a match as well. So like 5 times 10 is 10 times 5. Same deal with variables. X times y is y times x. Or cosine of t times sine of t is sine of t times cosine of t. Okay, so you can mix up the order as long as with multiplication. Okay, number 2 and 5. Okay, so 2, let's remind ourselves, this has 3 terms. The greatest common factor on this problem would be 1. So then we move on to the next strategy. Well, whenever there's 3 terms when you factor, it's usually going to factor into 2 binomials. Okay, so I'm just setting this up. And I just use the guess and check style. I know that this x and this x would multiply to be x squared. And then I'm looking at this positive 6. And I just need to know the factors that would multiply to give me that positive 6, and then also add up to be negative 5. So I'm focused on this right now, and I'm thinking, well, I think it should be minus 3 and minus 2. And then just double check, x squared minus 2x minus 3x and positive 6. That would match the up above. Okay, so that's how this number 5 would also work. So we see it's 3 terms. It has a greatest common factor of 1 also. Well, if it has 3 terms with a square involved, it probably factors into 2 binomials, where the first term, I'm thinking, well, what times what is secant squared of t? Well, secant of t times itself would be secant squared of t. And then both of these are plus signs, so that makes this a little easier. You're just thinking, okay, what terms that you can multiply together to get 12 would also add up to 7? Well, plus 3 and plus 4. Okay, there is my guess. And then we'll check it. Okay, so our check, secant of t times secant of t is secant squared of t. Secant of t times 4 is 4 secant of t. 3 times secant of t is 3 secant of t. And then 3 times 4 is 12. Notice these two add up to be 7. So all 3 of my terms are there. Okay, so it matches. And I wrote 2, but I think my 1 went away. There goes 12. Okay, so we have an exact match. Okay, number 3 and 6, also similar. Okay, so number 3 also does not have any greatest common factor besides 1. And it's still 3 terms though. So taking that same strategy, I'm thinking, well, what times what is 2x squared? Well, it's got to be 2x and x in some way. And then I'm thinking, what times what is negative 15? That still also gives us a negative 7 after it multiplies. Okay, so, well, actually, when all of it multiplies. So here I'm going to do my guess and check. I'm thinking it's 5 and 3 in a way. I'm going to do plus 3 and minus 5. So there's my guess. And then now I would check it. 2x and x is 2x squared. This would be negative 10x. Plus 3x is negative 7x. And then positive 3 and negative 5 is negative 15. Yep, good. Okay, so it matches. Okay, so I like the guess and check style, but you can always use whatever factoring methods you use that you like. Okay, so if you like, some students like doing the cross thing, some students like making factor trees, some students have other methods. Okay, so whatever method you like, whatever method it is that you use on like 2 will work on 5. Any method that you use on 3 will work on 6, except instead of x's, it's trig functions, so sine, cosine, whatever. Here on number 6, it's tangent. Okay, so the greatest common factor on this one is still 1. And then I'm looking at this and saying, well, I have something squared and I have 3 terms, so it should be 2 binomials. And looking at this first term, I know it has to be 5 tangent of theta and tangent of theta. That's the only option that would give us 5 tangent squared theta. And then positive 2 is nice, and I need a negative in the middle. I think there's only one, or there's only 2 options. It's either negative 1 here and negative 2, or switch them. Okay, so let's see if this is the correct choice. Okay, so 5 tangent theta squared, and then okay, so it is good. Okay, so it looks like it's good. So I'm boxing it now to show the full check. So 5 tangent theta times tangent theta is 5 tangent squared theta. 5 tangent theta times negative 2 would be minus 10 tangent theta. Negative 1 times tangent theta would be negative tangent theta. Negative 1 and negative 2 is positive 2. And then notice these 2 terms add up to be negative 11 tangent of theta. So everything's accounted for. Okay, so that's how we factor trig functions. So it doesn't change the method, algebra or trig. We're combining the 2 now. Okay, so that's that for factoring. Thanks for watching. If you do have questions, please let me know.